My name is Sue Fletcher. I work at Ohio University in the first year programs office where I'm the curriculum coordinator. But today I want to share with you something that is very close to my heart and my background in communication studies, and that's communication styles. It really has been a game changer for me, and I've been teaching about it for years, and it really could be something that might enhance your workplace and workplace communication. So let's get started. What do you see? Do you see two people looking at each other? Or do you see a vase? Or both? Or how about this one? Is this a duck? Or is this a rabbit? This one's a little more challenging. Do you see an old woman looking down? Or do you see a young woman looking off to the side? It's really a matter of perceptions, and sometimes just a little head tilt can change your ability to see both sides of this picture. And that's really what I want to talk about, is how perceptions can change. There's something called self-evaluation bias that causes us to see ourselves and others inaccurately, maybe less awareness of how we might be coming across to others. It's also something that causes us to misinterpret the actions of others and attribute motives that could be inaccurate. We can attribute problems to, say, their personality or character, when really it's more a matter of circumstances or behavioral communication styles. By way of example, a few years ago I worked for a nonprofit. I was a communications person and Bob was in charge of finances. We had to communicate a lot, and every Monday morning I knew I could expect a phone call from Bob. He would give me every single detail of the report that he was sending me, and it was a much longer conversation than I preferred to have. And if I asked questions, he gave excruciating detail. From my perspective, it was kind of annoying. I mean, I knew that he meant well, but his communication style and mine definitely clashed, at least from my perspective. I moved quickly with decisions and tasks, and he moved much slower. He wanted precise detail and accuracy, and I just wanted to get to the bottom line and get to action. It was after I attended a workshop and learned about communication styles, which is sometimes otherwise known as behavioral styles or social styles, that I began to understand that it wasn't just Bob being annoying, but indicative of his style of communicating and based on his priorities with regards to tasks and our working relationship and the differences with mine. So I think a lot of us have experienced feeling like Michael from The Office here, where nobody's listening to me. And really that is part of the point of doing some training like this on communication styles. The intended outcome is versatility, that you will be listened to and you will be listening better to others because of your ability to adjust your personal pace and priorities to improve the interaction with a person of a different style. So the basic concepts are this. We have a primary style, a favorite, that defaults under stress, and then we have a backup style that is used sometimes or maybe in compatibility with our primary style. We really are a range of all four styles. We're not in just one category and we stay there permanently, but we actually learn to flex our own style. And as we do that more, we meet and understand the needs of communication needs of others whose styles are different. So how is your style determined? So the way I understand communication styles and interpret it is we have two basic dimensions that our communication behavior falls into. And so the one we're looking at right now is called assertiveness or influence. And what this is the degree to which the person attempts to influence, and I look at it as has the need to influence in a communication situation. And what this looks like on a high need to influence is someone who's going to speak a lot, going to be speaking directly, is going to tend to dominate or control a conversation. A person with a lower need to influence is going to be probably less direct, probably ask more questions, will be quieter, more of a listener, doesn't have a need to influence that communication. That doesn't mean they don't influence it. It just means that they don't have a high need in a communication setting to influence that communication. Responsiveness. This is the relational versus task orientation. And what this means is how the person outwardly responds more to tasks and the relationships in terms of how they prioritize those. So you can see on this grid here, the four basic types. And I like to use the idea of the human body because I think that represents more how we really are a little bit of all of these things, but maybe there are some in certain contexts we emphasize more than others. There are many iterations of this idea of communication styles, and the form that I'm most familiar with was developed by Wilson Learning, a training company, and used by many other training companies such as TrackCom. Independent research studies have shown a preference for this model of communication training over Myers-Briggs or DISC that you may have heard of. It's been used by thousands of organizations to improve leadership performance and sales results. Mostly because it's easy to use and people can see immediate changes has made it very popular. There are many variations. They all use the 4 quadrants, and some are more personality-based and some are more communication-based. I really like this one I thought I'd share with you, made popular by Gary Smalley and John Trent, that compares your style to various animal types. You can see the lion, which has similarities to the driver, that arms and legs controller, the leader, the brain to that industrious beaver, the heart to the lovable golden retriever, and the expressive eyes and mouth, the persuader, to the lively otter. I think it's kind of fun. They've even done trainings that compare your styles to shoes styles, and believe it or not, even the kind of car you like to drive. So I'd like to unpack a little bit about each style, and we'll start with the eyes and mouth, the persuader, the expressive, and those at the top of that high need to influence. So it's pretty easy to spot that eyes and mouth persuader because they're very outgoing, high energy communicator, lots of gestures, very spontaneous in their actions and decisions, loves to share information and opinions, usually their own, a big picture person who inspires others, storyteller, will jump quickly from one activity to another, but could sometimes miss the details, kind of not a real interested in a detail person, and definitely prefers to work where there's a lot of social interaction. The arms and legs, the controller, the driver. This communication style is one that is very assertive and a direct communicator. The focus will be on action and results and bottom line. This communicator would have a high need to control the situation and could sometimes be perceived as overbearing because they are so direct and take charge. In fact, you'll know this person as the one when everybody's trying to decide where to go for dinner or for lunch and no one can make up their mind. This person says, "Okay, fine, here's where we're going." Some other things about the driver is that they work quickly and self-directedly, have strong administrative and leadership skills, and you can recognize them because they often talk in terms of goals and tasks and work. The heart, the amiables, the stabilizers, actually the most popular of all the 4 styles. Communicators who are the heart prefer to work with others, like the persuader, high on that relational side, but with less need to influence those around them. They have strong listening skills and often are seen supporting others. You don't notice them as much in a group because they often don't speak up or say much or offer their own opinions. If anything, they're going to be asking questions more than making statements. They have a tendency to make decisions and take action at a much slower pace and dislike conflict. Some other interesting things about the heart is they're very loyal to organizations and leadership because of that relational priority. They will often go the extra mile to support coworkers, and they'll focus on how others are feeling. In fact, this is the person who will ask you how you're doing and really want to know it before sitting down and beginning a task at hand. The brain, the analytical, high on the task orientation and low on the need to influence. But because of the high task orientation, we'll want to be right and will collect a lot more data and is more the information specialist. Well, tendency to be cautious in decisions and in action, but because of the low need to influence, we'll be more observant and less involved in a group. We'll ask a lot of questions and may need to be drawn out to get to some of those details and information. Is very detail oriented when asked a question, much like my friend Bob, and very skilled in that problem solving because of how much they value the data. They like organization and structure and policy, so not really comfortable in an organization or a situation environment where it's very chaotic or there's a lot of change going on. The benefit of understanding your communication styles and the styles of others goes well beyond just knowing about them, but applying that knowledge, especially when you experience frustration or conflict when working with others. And let's be honest, that could practically be a daily occurrence. Conflict occurs most often when we are using our own style exclusively and expecting others to have the same pace and priorities that we do. Communication styles help us understand and adapt to the styles of others. For example, I know when communicating with a persuader, they like to influence. They have a lot of opinions, so I encourage their opinions and I get excited along with them about their ideas. When communicating with a controller, I know that I need to be more direct, get to the bottom line, and not be offended by their directness, as it's really not meant personally. And when communicating with the heart, the stabilizer, I know to ask them first how they're doing, ask about their day, their personal lives, before diving in on a request or a task. And with the brain, the analyzer, I know to be ready with that Excel spreadsheet and not be offended when they catch my mistakes on a draft. A helpful perspective on conflict is this idea of CIA. Some issues in a conflict I can control. I can change my behavior to slow down or speed up and match the pace. I can also influence a situation, like I was explaining in my previous examples, by matching my behavior to the pace and priorities of the other person. But there are some issues I just have to accept, like Bob's love of details. That was never going to go away. And in fact, I learned over time to see that as a plus instead of a negative, because I definitely wasn't the detail person the more I thought about it, and it was really important to have his perspective. This chart illustrates those areas of tension, the slow versus the fast decision makers, the priorities with regards to what we value most in an interaction. The most important areas, of course, and why hopefully you're watching this video, is to work on those areas where we can change. So for the persuader, that is to listen more and follow through with the details. For the controller, also listen more, but more with a mind towards empathy and patience and slowing down. And for the heart, the stabilizer, initiating more and being more of a joiner into the conversation and not necessarily sitting back. And for the analytical, being more flexible and comfortable with imperfections and gray area. I want to close with this last image. Imagine those 4 quadrants with the faces of people you know in your office. I use The Office, one of my favorite shows, and if you don't know it, I encourage you to check it out. It's hilarious. If you do know these characters, then you can see them now for their style of communication. So who is the Michael, the eyes and mouth persuader that you work with, who likes you to get excited about his really cool ideas? Who is the Dwight, who has a plan for everything and can be somewhat demanding? Who is the Pam, the encourager and the friend to everyone? Who is the Oscar, the quiet but industrious detail person who sometimes knows a lot more than we ever give them credit for? I've covered a lot of ground, and I encourage you to start seeing your communication and that of other people around you through this lens of communication styles, and see if you might find your way to improved relationships, less frustration and conflict. It's not going to magically make all of that disappear, but it certainly makes it more manageable. And if you want to know more, I've put some links at the end of this video for the document in a OneDrive file that you can use to chart your own styles. The document you'll find looks something like this, and based on your answers to a series of descriptors, you'll plot your results that will show the mix of styles that is you. The ones that are highest to the right of the midline are those that typically influence most how you communicate with others. And a reminder that these are not definitive or unchanging personality traits, but rather patterns of communication behavior. However, it's these patterns that show us where we can be flexible and shift our perspective. In this, you'll see your strengths, and you'll know some of your weaker points by just what we've just been through, understanding the different styles. And you'll also see where your particular style in the graph that falls below midline maybe indicates an area that you might have points of tension, or maybe need to flex when working with others who emphasize those styles. It's really a great exercise for not only yourself, but one you can do with others that you work with closely. It's been a pleasure sharing with you something that I'm very passionate about and have spent a lot of time studying, but also something that I use on a daily basis to improve the communication with those around me.
I hope you'll find some things that you can use too.